So if you watch a lot of Doctor Who YouTube content, you've probably never seen my face before because I've never made content on this show ever before. But hello, my name's Jaden. I am a Doctor Who fan. I've done some short form content unboxing some of the merchandise. I got loads of it back there. But yeah, I wanted to make this video talking about the show's cancellation / being put out to tender because I have a unique perspective on the show that a lot of people don't have. And if you're watching this as a fan who's been around for a long time, you'll probably think that people like me don't exist. But get ready for this bombshell of a sentence. I started watching the show with Russell T Davies' second era. Now, you probably don't think those people exist. You know, the statistic is 1 of how many people joined during the Disney era. That is me. I am the one person. And I just want to preface that I absolutely adored a majority of that era. Like, the 60ths especially, I really adored. They were my first 3 episodes of Doctor Who ever. I had never seen anything before. And considering I've lived in Britain all my life, and that I was born in 2004, so I was around for like the peak Tennant Smith era of the show, it is wild to believe that I never had any exposure to it. But no, it's true. You know, my first ever episode was The Star Beast, and for all of its faults, I really enjoyed what I saw, so I stuck around for Wild Blue Yonder, thought that was fantastic. Then The Giggle came around, obviously the bi-generation happened, but I didn't know what was wrong with that because I knew fuck all about the show. So I saw that and I thought, wow, that's like a really unique and cool way to keep a show going. Obviously then I went back and watched, you know, all of the modern era, the TV movie, a lot of the classic, some of the audio dramas. And, you know, I realized, like, oh wow, that is a very big change of pace that they did there in that episode. But, you know, ultimately, you know, it's like, I guess my point is that, you know, whether it be nostalgia, I don't even think you can say nostalgia, but whether it be through my own experiences or what, the 60ths are still some of my favourite pieces of Doctor Who content ever. You know, it's like, and that is wild to be saying out loud because I don't think many share that opinion, but for me, that's my truth. Let me live it, all right? You gotta understand I had a really weird opener to the show, so you know, naturally something strange was bound to happen when that was my first exposure. But yeah, so 14th Doctor, probably my second favourite Doctor. I preferred 14 to 10. I found 10 fucking insufferable, to be honest, a lot of the time. But 14, I don't know, there was something about, like, I don't know what it was, really. I know a lot of people think 14 and 10 are the same Doctor, like, in how they portray themselves, but I disagree. You know, I see a big discrepancy there. And again, obviously, you know, going on from Tennant in the specials to Ncuti Gatwa, technically Ncuti Gatwa was my second Doctor, like, that I watched. Technically untrue, because I watched a TV movie between the 60ths and the Christmas special, Church and Ruby Road. TV movie, it wouldn't surprise you all, I'm assuming, to find out that the 8th Doctor is therefore my favourite Doctor. So you've got 8, 14, they're my favourite Doctors. Weird, I'm aware, but just let me have it. Let me have an opinion, I know it's strange, let me off. Anyway, as I say, yes, I am now a well-versed, educated Doctor Who fan. I've seen, like I said, so much of the content, so I know my stuff about the show. And that's why I wanted to talk about, you know, it being cancelled and my perspective as someone who joined on for this era. So, watching the era for the first time and being able to see the production issues happen in real time was an experience, you know. I recall that after loving the 60ths and the Christmas special, I got some of my friends around and said, guys, I'm so excited for Doctor Who. You know, it's like, you've got to all come round and watch it. So I think there was maybe 4 of us, you know, I got like 3 of my friends round to watch Space Babies when it dropped on BBC iPlayer at midnight. Maybe one of the most embarrassing experiences of my entire life. Maybe. It's plausible. It fucking sucked. Like, it sucked ass. And luckily Devil's Cord was a big step up from that first episode. I really enjoyed the Devil's Cord, but Space Babies, genuinely one of the worst Doctor Who episodes I have ever seen, and I've seen Time of the Rani. You know, so, yep. You know, so yeah, like I say, you know, watching the era, it had its ups and downs, and I'm not cracking any new ground by saying that I absolutely adored episodes like Lux and, you know, I can't remember what it was called now that I think about it. The one where the entire episode was that the 15th Doctor had stepped on a bomb and it couldn't explode. explode. Oh, it was Boom. It was Boom. Boom, I thought was just fucking fantastic. I even took to Twitter to say, guys, where has this come from? You know, this era was seeming way more childish, and then it dropped this banger, frankly. You know, I don't know if I'm the only one who thought that episode was like a fucking banger, but no, I really enjoyed Boom. I thought it was great. So, fast forward, I'd been to see the season 1 finale in cinemas with my friend Ray. I don't know what I thought to it at the time. I actually didn't think it was as bad as people were saying. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was terrible either. I thought it was just a mid-finale. I didn't think it was as like bombastically bad as people were saying it was. I had a good time watching it in theaters. Doctor Who in theaters was kind of a magical experience, no matter the quality of the episodes. You know, it's like it was really, really, really special. Then series 2 rolls around and you've obviously got Belinda replacing Ruby. All these things that happened behind the scenes, which were fun to watch happen and go, what is going on over there? But then series 2 came out. I enjoyed the majority of it. You know, it's like it definitely had a stronger opener to series 1. A lot of the episodes were much stronger. I think it was a more consistent season. And then once again, what is it with these finales? You get to the finale, and as we're all, you know, we're all aware of it. Let's not beat around the bush. That ending with Billie Piper, I would be embarrassed to tell you what my reaction to that was, because it wasn't negative. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm an idiot. I am a stupid man. I was crying when the 15th Doctor regenerated, because this was my first experience of a Doctor who I'd been watching along upon release regenerate. You know, because we didn't really know what was going to happen to 15 at the end of the series. So to see him regenerate, I was upset. I cried. All right, I cried. I was upset. And then Billie Piper came on screen. I just remember like this weird noise protruded from my mouth. It was sort of like an inner squeal, like a like that. And I just sat there with my jaw agape and then watched the credits roll. And I think it took me a few weeks for the nostalgia to stop and for me to go, well, that was done. So, you know, Christmas special announced. Thought, you know, we'll get a summary of this era. No, we're not getting that. So, my era of the show doesn't get a conclusion. Everyone else's does. Even Jodie's fans got, you know, a culmination. Hell, she even reappeared in fucking Shooty's episode. So, my first era of the show is the one era of the show, unless you count Sylvester McCoy's, even though that did eventually get wrapped up in the TV movie. This is the first era that doesn't really get an ending. I assume that whoever picks up the show eventually isn't going to carry on the Billie Piper thing, because why would you? That really would be a dumb choice. So I don't know how to feel about that. It feels like this kind of open book that's never really going to be able to close, at least until the series comes back and should they give it any sort of conclusion. But frankly, my main takeaway of this cancellation, and this is where I start talking about that, so this is the part that you've come for 8 minutes into the video. I think a lot of the online discourse is very dangerous and stupid, frankly. Especially grifters talk a big talk about RIP Doctor Who and the show getting completely cancelled or whatnot. You guys do realise that, and maybe this is a reach. Technically, Doctor Who is a state-funded TV show. Technically, by us paying our TV licenses in the UK, we are technically paying for Doctor Who to be made to a degree. Like a tiny degree, but it's an existent degree. It's like this is a brand owned by the BBC, which is this big overarching establishment within Britain. It's like, and so when you have a franchise like the BBC currently has a franchise like this that's existed for so long, if you really think they're going to let that go, you're kind of stupid. And maybe I'll be eating my words, maybe they will just can the show eventually, whatever. It's like, if I'm proven wrong, I don't really care at this point. But I guess my point being is that I just can't see them letting the show go ever, really. It's like, if you can keep something going, even if it's like beating a dead horse, it doesn't matter whether you think they should do it or not. Look at franchises these days, bro. Not many of them are making money. You know, look at Marvel, look at DC, you know, everything's falling apart because of there is this like pandering to nostalgia and clap moments and dangling keys that exists in every franchise right now. So I don't know why people were surprised when Doctor Who started to do it. You know, but the point is, would you rather have more of that, or would you rather have no show, or would you rather have someone new come in? And I think the option that the BBC opted for was, let's have someone new come in, which realistically, guys, what would you prefer? Would you prefer the RTD2 era, even without RTD? Would you rather that style of content continue to be made for the show, or would you rather have nothing? Whether it be forever, or would you rather have a long gap until we eventually get something of quality? You know, and it's like, for me, once again, even as someone whose first era was this era of the show, I'd rather wait. I enjoyed what I saw. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I didn't enjoy RTD2. I did. But Jesus, most of the fun of it came from going, you could tell they had some fucking ball aches getting that made. You know, it's like, sadly, that was a lot of the appeal of it, is just trying to notice when shit was clearly tampered with. So it would be nice to go back to the era of the show, you know, maybe similar to, hell, I think the Capaldi era was like a massive highlight for this. I'd rather go back to like when really great stories were told and, you know, performances were up to par and stuff. It's you know, as I say, I think we'll get there. I really do. And again, this is what I mean. I think there's just a lot of fear mongering online, and I don't really know why. You know, at this point, I think this is a question to be begged as well. Does it really matter if Doctor Who gets cancelled completely? Like, there is so much content of this show that I'm not convinced you could get through it in a lifetime. You know, you've got the entire classic era of the show, then you've got the animated recreations, then you've got the TV movie, then you've got specials, then you've got the main modern show, then you've got the Disney reboot, then you've got all the big finish audios, then you've got the novelizations, then you've got the comics. It's like, you're never going to be able to make it through all of it unless you have a ridiculous amount of time on your hands or an unemployed bum. That's just a fact. So don't seriously sit there and tell me you have no Doctor Who content to consume, because you're a fucking liar. Go and watch some of the stuff that you have at your disposal. You know, but again, let's focus on the facts of like whether the show comes back or not or whatever. It's like, okay, should it come back? Yes, we want, you know, fresh faces. Yes, we want a new creative overhaul. I'm not breaking any new ground once again by saying that. But as I say, personally, I'm just happy waiting as long as it takes. I'm happy, hell, controversial take again, but I'd be happy even if it was a show reboot and they just didn't acknowledge any of the past and started over. You know, it's like, I wouldn't even mind that. I wouldn't mind another movie. You know, something I really wouldn't mind, and I know I've talked a big talk about nostalgia, and this will seem biased given that Paul McGann's my favourite Doctor and I've met him multiple times and he's in my movie, but bring the guy back. Fill in that we never got, that we were supposed to get. Give us that. You know, the time has gone to appeal to America or whatever Fox were trying to do at the time. Give us a Paul McGann show, bro. He's willing to do it. You know, I've spoken to him about it and he is willing to do it. So do it. You know, it's like, that's not really nostalgia because that's something we've never seen before, at least on screen. You know, we've seen so much of 8 in audio dramas, but, you know, to be able to see him visually outside of the TV movie Power of the Doctor and Night of the Doctor, that'd be delightful. You know, I don't really see why anyone would have any problems with that. I don't even think that's necessarily getting stuck in the show's past or its history. We are technically breaking new ground if we did that. That is something that's never been done before. So, you know, I think that would be a cool direction to take, but let's face it, it's not going to happen. But yeah, as I say, I don't really have any unique takes, so I'm sorry if I clickbaited you. My take is pretty much what everyone else said, so I guess I just kind of wanted to prove that people who joined the show with this newest era do exist, and we think exactly the same as you guys. This show needs change, even if I don't think it was... Okay, yes, I think it was broken, but I thought it was enjoyable. You know, even the finales, which were messy and clunky as all hell, I enjoyed them. I had fun watching them. You know, I know it's like a brain-dead take to say it's okay just to watch something because it's fun. But if I'm sat there enjoying what's being put in front of me and I see it as a switch off from work and life and stresses, you know, do people overthink media is probably another thing we need to look into. Because no, I don't think so. I think it's good and acceptable to want a decent standard of storytelling in the stories that you consume via media. But equally, it's like, you know, we got jobs, we got people dying in the world, we got wars going on. A bit of kooky television is something nice to switch off from all of the problems with, you know? So, you know, as I say, it's like, you know, we will get Doctor Who back. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think the BBC's ever going to let it go because they have no good reason to, you know? But if we have to wait, then so be it. That's fine. You know, it's like, I'm fine with that. I'm sure all you're fine with that. So, that's all I've really got to say. Long live the TARDIS, I guess. And, I don't know if I'll ever talk about the show again. Unless they cast Dwayne Johnson as the Doctor. Now, I think that would really work.